Alright guys, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at this. This is one of my newer acquisitions. This is a Type 99 Arisaka. Now I got this as part of a trade, and I'm at a bit of a loss with it, what I'm going to do with it. But I'll explain to that in a minute. But you've already been seeing some clips on my shorts from this rifle. But anyways, this was Type 99 Arisaka. I'm not sure the exact year of this rifle. I haven't really looked it up yet. But because it has the aircraft sights on it, which you'll see up close in a little while, this is definitely one of the earlier ones. Pretty much what happened during World War II. I apologize about the wind. It's been hard finding somewhere where there's no wind to film the past couple weeks. But basically, what they did is, during World War II, there were a couple different batches of rifles. The first batch earlier in the war, when they had plenty of resources and manpower, were a lot higher quality, which is what this was. Now, later in the war, when they were running low on guns and materials, and they needed to pump them out real fast, they really cut corners on the quality. So, like a lot of things, like these adjustable aperture sights here, these got removed, and it was just a fixed peep sight on it. Some of the stocks were more crude, machining was more crude, stuff like that. Now this one here is the Type 99 long barrel, and ideally what these were is they had these aircraft sights on them, and pretty much the idea was if you had a squadron of men with this rifle, they could shoot down a Chinese biplane. Maybe, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know of any cases where it actually worked, but they still have some really neat sights to have on the rifle, and you know, it's pretty cool. These did have a special dust cover that go over the receiver, and essentially what it was, when the bolts closed, it would completely cover over the receiver and stop dust from getting in, and even covered all the way back here to the bolts. A lot of the soldiers took them off simply because it was kind of a hassle to reassemble the rifle with it, so they just took it off. I am going to probably end up getting one for this rifle, but it's not a high concern for me. When you get up close, I'll show you the deal with some of the markings on these, because it's a shame how some of these rifles were defaced, but it's also part of history, the reason why they were defaced. So it is what it is. But as you can see, this is pretty much just being sporterized. Still got the original barrel on it, and this used to be the original stock, which actually serial number does match to the barrel but not the receiver, which is a little weird. So it's a mismatched barrel receiver combo. But I'm going to bring y'all in a little closer, and we'll talk about the controls on it, and go from there. Okay, so some of the things that are kind of cool about this rifle is, first, let's take a look at those aircraft sights up close. So the way that it's set up is you can flip them up like this, and then this is your normal, you see this type ladder sight pretty commonly in World War I and World War II rifles, because it's a volley sight. So the cartridges they used back then weren't particularly good for long range, so essentially they'd be kind of lobbing stuff in at an arc at the enemies, and that's how these sights were graduated. However, you could flip these wings out, and they give you a 1, 2, and 3 march for the marking for the aircrafts. Now I'm not sure exactly what these numbers actually mean. I'm assuming you use them for trying to guess the speed of the aircraft if it's coming, you know, kind of crossways. But then you do have just a regular peep sight. Now for the front post on here, you have just a real big, wide, triangle post, which I actually hate a lot. See, I don't really like peep sights that much, or aperture sights all that much, simply because to me, I don't know, I just don't like them. They don't work good with my eyes. I'm far more accurate with a notch sight, like on an SKS or an AK or something like that. But anyway, so when I was talking about here, as you can see right here, there's supposed to be a chrysanthemum right here, which was the symbol of the emperor. Well, a lot of these rifles, most of them, have that mum completely defaced off the rifle when these were brought in by the GIs, and that's simply because it was a sign of disrespect to Japan because of attack on Pearl Harbor and the fact that they hated the Japanese because of the war. So a lot of them, most Arisakas you're going to see are going to have this removed. And if you do have one that is in full military configuration, it has the mum, that is the collectible version of it, especially if it's early war rifles. Now, something interesting about this rifle is built on the Mauser action. So it's very Mauser-like. Even the takedown, which we'll go over here in a second, is Mauser-like. Curved bolt handle, just like a Mauser. I mean, if you know Mausers, you know this rifle pretty much. And in the safety is this real nice knurled back plate, and essentially what you have to do is push it in and rotate it. But the easiest way to do it is to push it in with your palm and just rotate with your palm like that. That's the easiest way to do it. It is possible to do it by hand like that, but just something about doing it with your hand is just easier. As you can see, there is no safety of any kind on this rifle outside of this here. That is your safety, and it is a bolt lock. You can't do anything. Trigger can't do anything. It's safe as it is with that on. But a lot like with a lot of Mausers and a lot of World War I guns, the safety's up here on the back of the bolt. Something you're not used to with modern firearms. Now down here you have a floor plate, and you do have a lever in front of your trigger that opens up your floor plate so you can empty out your magazine without having to run your bolt a bunch of times. Takedown's pretty easy for the bolt. Just open it up, grab this lever right here and pull it out, and your bolt comes right out. And essentially what it is, you have a lever right there, and that's what catches on the bolt. Now as far as the bolt, you can see real basic, a Mauser pattern bolt face, everything. I'm not sure if these were originally blued. I'm assuming that they probably were. But this rifle is not a candidate to be returned to military configuration. The receiver is, besides the mum, the receiver and barrel is completely original. The problem is, at some point somebody rechambered this thing for a 30-06 and didn't do a very good job at it. When I got it from the guy I traded from, he said it was under the impression it was still under 7.7 Japanese because he had bought a box and shot it a couple times and it was just fine. Well, and the pictures you see above, when I fired it and I was collecting my brass because I was planning on reloading, I noticed that the shoulder of the cartridge had actually stretched forward on the cartridge, and it deformed it in a way that wasn't like that. So I only did about 5 shots of the 7.7 Japanese. Well, I took that cartridge, I measured it out, compared it to a unfired 30-06 cartridge, which was the common cartridge that GIs converted these rifles to when they got back to the States, and all the measurements matched up to be 30-06. Well, when I went to shoot the 30-06, box of 30-06 I bought, rifle shoots fine, shot accurate, no problems. A little crunchy on the action, but I noticed some interesting deforming on the cases. The rear of the case here had deformed backwards quite a bit. And it's because the 7.7 Japanese is wider at the base, or it's actually more narrow at the base, or something like that. And then even on some of these cases here, I even started getting some case head separation on this rifle, which, you know, is no bueno. Now, the Japanese Type 99 Arisaka is known to be one of the strongest bolt actions ever made, and definitely the strongest made in World War II. So it can handle it. And even it has a safety feature that's actually made for something like a case head separation, and that's this hole right here. So basically, if you get a case head separation or a blown primer, instead of blasting the bolt back, putting too much pressure on the bolt or anything like that, it's actually meant to vent out of this hole right here in the top of the receiver. So it does have a safety feature for situations such as this. And on top of that, the action was made extremely strong. There's some reloaders out there that have tested this rifle all the way up to 90,000 psi. That's crazy. That's around the same psi it took to get the Serbu to blow up for Kentucky Ballistics. Now, all that said, it should be technically safe to fire. But the issue is, I don't feel like having one of these get a full case head separation, and then this whole front part of this brass be stuck in the barrel and or in the chamber, and have to fight that out. Iraq veteran 8888 did a video a while back where he torture tested some of these with reloads, and he did some crazy reloads too and couldn't get it to blow up. He did have a couple of situations in which the action seized up because the brass had pretty much formed and wedged the bolt in place, but he couldn't get it to blow up. In fact, I've never heard of one of these blowing up. It can handle the pressure of 30-06 no problem at all, but I'm just concerned about that. So what am I going to do with this rifle then? Well, because it's not in a configuration I really want to shoot, as far as safety so much, and the stock's been sporterized, so there's no point. The stock would have to be replaced to make it into full military configuration. And on top of that, even if I did return it to full military configuration, I wouldn't be shooting a military cartridge, and I wouldn't want to be shooting it. So I think what my options are going to do is I'm going to probably look at rebarreling this rifle, properly having it rebarreled. Not just a rechamber, but an actual rebarrel for 30-06. So there's a couple companies out there that you can send in a barrel, and they can match the exact profile of the barrel and the threads and all that stuff like that. Pretty much replicate a barrel, but then chamber it in any cartridge you want. 30-06, it does feed and run out of this magazine, no problem. But it's not. I don't want to shoot 30-06 out of this. My guess is when somebody rechambered this rifle for the 30-06, when they cut the shoulder a little too far. So when this case is here and it fires, you got the bolt holding on to the back of the case. This case actually stretches forward just a little bit to meet to where that chamber is, where that shoulder is, and it fires from there. Like I said, completely safe in this action. Now, lesser actions, this could be very dangerous. But like I said, because of the way it's designed and the safety features, it is relatively safe in this rifle. So, that said, if I go that route, it's not going to be anytime soon. I'll probably go through, get a 30-06 barrel made for it, something that's modern, a lot stronger than even this here, and I'll be able to run any 30-06 load I want in it, and then I'll try to find a way to make it to where I can still use these factory sights on it. Now there are out there some sights, rails, you can actually remove your sight block, and there's a rail that actually goes on here and screws in right here, and you could put like a scout scope or something like that on it. For 30-06, I'm not 100% sure that I would want to do a scout scope. I would want something with less eye relief, more zoom. But I wouldn't mind doing, keeping it just iron sights like this, like a brush gun. So, but definitely though, I am going to change out that front post to something a little bit more usable. So that's probably what my thoughts are on it. Let's take some close-ups of the marking so you can see where it is. You have the Japanese markings there on top of the receiver, right below where the mum used to be. And then on the side of the receiver, you have some proof marks, serial number, and a few more maker's marks right there. But overall, pretty basic, just your basic Mauser action. Now, the problem is when you buy these Arisakas, especially the Type 99s, a lot of them were rechambered for 7.7, for 30-06. So you really got to make sure and check on them. The problem is when they were rechambering these guns back in the 40s and 50s, a lot of these good old boys were just doing it the old-fashioned way. They were strapping the chamber ream on the end of a drill or something like that and just going at it in there. They weren't really doing it the right way. And to be honest, it's so close that you could do 30-06 in it if done right, but you'd have to be really careful and do it the right way. On these, just rebarreling it or keeping it to 7.7 Japanese is the best thing. 7.7 is a little hard to find, but it is still made. I got my boxes from Steinel. They still have it. There's a couple others that make it. You can still buy the dies. You can reload for it. You can buy the brass. So it's not unobtainium. Not as easy to find as 30-06, but it's out there. Now, there were some of these that were professionally rechambered to 30-06. And those were rechambered by both the Japanese military and also by the U.S. military. And they were given to soldiers in South Korea and even some U.S. soldiers during the Korean War. Those are really, really, really collectible. Because generally those are going to still have your chrysanthemum. And they're going to be marked with the caliber change on the barrel or the receiver. And then some of those I've heard also has U.S. property marks and even South Korean property marks. So those can be really, really collectible, but they are rare. So that's something to keep an eye out for. But besides that, that's this Type 99 Arisaka. If y'all have any questions, suggestions, comment down below. And I'll see y'all guys next time. You have a good one.